We're here today in Glasgow, Govan, at the iconic statue of Mary Barber, one of Glasgow's most famous daughters, who during the First World War in 1915 organised the people of Govan and Glasgow against the greedy landlords who tried to increase their rents to evict the families of the sons that were fighting in the First World War, because it's this type of spirit that will be in all of our shows.
On today's show, we probe the question of Scottish independence and ask, is Scotland on the verge of a second independence referendum 4 years after its first one? And does the result look more like a yes than a no this time around? To explore this in more detail, I'm in Glasgow, Scotland's biggest city, to meet a man who has travelled that very path. Mike Dailly is a solicitor advocate working for the Govan Law Centre, and 4 years ago was a Scottish Labour Party member. Today, Mike is an SNP member and an energetic campaigner for both a second referendum and a yes vote this time round.
Mike, you and I have been friends for the best part of 20 years, and you've always used your legal skills over that period to fight on behalf of the underdog and the powerless. However, during the independence referendum, you and I were on opposite sides of the fence. I was yes, you were no. You have now moved your position and you are very firmly in the yes camp. What factors led you to that decision?
To be honest, I think there's been a lot of different reasons, and it's taken me some time obviously to come to the position that I am for Scotland becoming independent. If you think about the post-war consensus that we had in the UK, and I think that kind of bound us together. You know, that was the kind of cement that pulled us, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland. Very much the welfare state, very much the NHS. So I think what we've got is now a divergence where Scotland is going off in a different direction altogether from the rest of the UK. We're egalitarian, we're progressive, we want to bring people who are foreign to this country. The rest of the UK want to deport them. So I think for me that's one of the key reasons. Another reason for me, Tommy, is that for 30 years of my life the Tories have been in power and nobody voted for them in Scotland. And ultimately we've got this seesaw between the Tories and Labour. And I guess the problem, and I say this as a former Labour member, is that Labour talk a big game, but when they get into power of recent decades, they've actually done very little. So in many respects, Labour's not the party of Bevan and Attlee. And sadly, I don't think Jeremy's got much chance. I mean, basically, the party, the Labour Party is imploding. So we're effectively in this situation where Scotland's never been able to fulfil its potential under the Westminster arrangement. So there's lots of reasons, but I suppose that's kind of the key ones.
How big an issue do you think is the question of Brexit in convincing some of those who voted no last time to vote yes this time?
I think Brexit's a huge factor, and certainly it was a major one for me, because ultimately, as you know, Scotland voted to remain in the EU. Scotland has always been a European country. Our legal system's been heavily influenced by European Roman law. So ultimately, I think Scotland's now got two futures with Brexit. One is getting dragged off the White Cliffs of Dover into an abyss, having a future where basically we have more poverty, we have more austerity, almost turbo austerity under Brexit, or we can seize this opportunity to have our own potential gained. And I think ultimately, if you look where we are with Brexit, the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, there's not really a cigarette paper between them, sadly. So we're being kind of taken down this absolutely disastrous path. Everybody is now saying we were sold a fraudulent prospectus on the side of a bus. But ultimately, the message from the Prime Minister is, Brexit means Brexit. So for me, I think as we move closer to the end of March next year, when we're going to come out of the EU, I think as each day passes, more and more people who voted no, like me, are going to realise that we've been dragged off the end of a cliff, and that now is the time for Scotland to seize her own destiny.
Mike, you're one of the keynote speakers at the Hope Over Fear rally in Glasgow's Freedom Square this Saturday. The independence grassroots movement will be gathering to call on the SNP leadership to use the democratic mandate they've got for Indy Ref 2. What's the message you're going to give to those who gather in Freedom Square on Saturday?
I think two messages, Tommy. One is, it's our future. It's our destiny. We cannot be denied a referendum. And the Scottish Parliament has voted for it. Ultimately, the SNP were elected on that manifesto. So the idea that the Prime Minister can say you're not having your referendum, and people like Jacob Rees-Mogg can say it's going to be 20 years, that's a constitutional crisis. There is no way that the people of Scotland can be denied a referendum. So that's my first message. My second one is, be bold. This is about aspiration. It is about hope over fear. Ultimately, we've got the ability with an independent Scotland to end food banks. No more Food Bank Britain in Scotland. No more homelessness. No more people going through the humility of being people that are dying, people that are severely disabled, having to prove that that's the case in order to get a minimum amount of money to live on. It's despicable. We don't have to live like this anymore.
Right now, some 47% of Scotland is for independence. It's my firm contention that a new poll fought in the background of the Brexit shambles and in the understanding that the vow of 4 years ago was a pile of nonsense, that new poll will convince the 250,000 odd no voters to shake off the fear and to embrace a new and a better Scotland by travelling the journey from no to yes. In its very essence, the independence campaign is a campaign for freedom of Scotland, to get the government that it votes for, to do the things in relation to peace and prosperity, to tackle inequality, to tackle poverty. And all the people of Scotland have to do to deliver that is pick up a wee lead pencil and vote yes to shake off that restrictive yoke of England that's holding us back.